That looks super bright to me from your end.
Shalom, shalom, family, and welcome once again um to this portion. Welcome to the Shabbat day. Shabbat shalom to everyone first and foremost, and welcome to uh, Nasik Zurishaddai, Yehudah, a review or highlight of Parasha Lecha. As we do every week, Nasik goes over the the previous week's portion and maybe highlight some of the things that some people might have missed and
Didn't
enhance
get a chance to get to.
or didn't get a chance to get to, and maybe highlight some of the things that people weren't able to get to. So once again, as you see, I'm remote. I'm all the way in Central America, Panama, but um, it's Shabbat, so it doesn't stop. Shabbat doesn't stop because you somewhere else in another place or in another country. You still have to do it. So still doing my job, and without any further ado, I'll pass it over to Nasik Zurishaddai. How are you? Oh, giving glory to the Most High God for all things and everything, thanking the Creator for getting me here safely, and I pray that the Creator will get me back home safely also. Although this is home also, so thanking the Creator for all things and everything. Nasik, how are you?
All right, I mean, first of all, let's give praises to the Supreme Eternal Universe, God of my forefathers, Abraham, Scott, Yaakov, and due respects to the leadership of DCB, the Chief Presterial, and also Chief Uzael, who's in Central America, the Isthmus of Panama at this particular time, and the Princess, Chief Brothers, Sisters, and those, that take the time out, opportunity to hear my voice. I'd like to greet you, Shalom Aleichem, and Shabbat Shalom, early Shabbat Shalom in some places. And I'd like to say, Adonai Sabtati Dakubi Yagi Tilateka, O Lord, open down my lips, and my mouth shall declare thy praise. First of all, I'd like to say, it's strange because you're in Panama, and this is like Lecha, and it seemed like they're gonna be like a segue because both people have to leave to become who they're gonna become.
That's right.
So last week, first of all, I'd like to give some announcements of some people that looked some chats. I wasn't able to get back to some of the people, but one brother especially, I wrote his name down. He had a lot of, even we have a difference of opinion on some issues, mainly dealing with Elijah and Enoch. I think it was now Micaiah, Micaiah, Soel.
Yes, Soel, Soel, right.
Right. All right, but I appreciate his comments, and maybe maybe we have to talk a little bit more because we got to look at certain things in those pasukim that gave me in perspective and context. Because we could take a one-liner and we could spin it, pretty much in a lot of different areas. That's why you have so many different sects and ideologies from one-liners. So sometimes we have to take things in this context as a whole.
Right.
But I appreciate the diligence of the brother sending a bunch of scriptural reference from his perspective. So, no, I mean, I say amen to that, and keep on doing what you're doing, because there's many paths to righteousness. That's what it says in the Psalms. But right now, last week we left off with Noah, and one of the things that we look at in this particular chapter when we get to the book of Lecha is that with Adam in Bereshit, we deal with a creation story, and we deal with more or less a non-physical thing till we get to the dust and talk about man forming the dust of the ground and stuff like that. Then with Noah, you have sort of a recreation story, in the sense that now you have a world that was destroyed and another world to be recreated in more of a physical sense now. So it's not so much in a spiritual sense now, just strictly in a physical sense. But as we get and approach this particular sidra with Lecha with Abraham, now is where we're going to join a spiritual sense of essence of what's up on high with the physical sense. And I've elaborated that a little bit more in the sense that with before the flood, before the Mabul, the flood, you don't see too many people talking about actually serving the creator or following a whole bunch of laws and stuff of that nature, or what the laws exist or anything. You read about a man that walked with God after 65 years, after 65 years old. He had his son named Methuselah, and he walked with God for 300 years. Then you read about a man who was righteous, such as Noah, who was wholehearted and who walked with God and who found grace. But after that, he followed a particular command of building the ark, and through him, our next world would be recreated. But then now, going into the second 1,000 years, going to the end of the second 1,000 years, second millennium. Now you have this patriarch here we call Avram. And it's interesting. So I like to start off in the chapter. I like to highlight a few things also from here, because it's a very long sidra. So I'm just going to highlight a few things. And basically, the sidra covers Avram's call to leave his country, family, and and go to a land. You also read where the Creator appears to Abraham in land of Canaan. You read where he was to be the land was going to be become an inheritance to his seed, his offspring, his heirs. You read about a famine. You read about Abraham separated from his nephew Lot. You read in this particular portion, Lot becoming a prisoner. Abraham had to rescue Lot. You read where the Creator makes a covenant with Abraham, and the Creator makes a promise with him. Then you read where Abraham is given Hagar to wife, and she bare Ishmael. You read where the Creator makes a covenant of circumcision. You read about how old the child should be circumcised. And then you read also about the change of Abraham's name and Sarah's name. All right, so those are some of the things going on, just in case. So it covers a lot, and each one of those could be a subject, and you could give what you call a debartor on each aspect of that. So I'm just going to highlight, because I know most people heard different teachers during the week expound upon this particular portion. So hopefully I won't be too redundant for those that's regulars that listen to different communities of teachers, and hopefully I can share certain insights that'll be a little bit different than maybe they might have heard earlier in the week. Not that and I also like to always, not that I'm coming with greater knowledge or anything like that. I like to present different viewpoints in scriptures, and so people could view it from a different perspective. Not that it's superior. So I want to make sure everybody understand that. So a lot of times when we talk about highlight, people might get the connotation of that, oh, he brings something heavier than the teachers prior to him. And that's not what I think of myself, and that's not what I'm doing. What I'm doing is sharing different viewpoints of some of the things I grew up understanding in scriptures, and listen to the various teachers. I say, okay, this one is say that, this one is say that. So maybe I could bring this portion out, or I could elaborate a little bit more in a different area in that portion. So that's what I do when I deal with the sidra. And it's also more so a review for those that's getting ready to go into, Wayera, which is, the sidra that's come up this Shabbat.
Genesis chapter 12.
Yeah, it was 12th chapter.
We're in the book of Genesis chapter 12.
And whenever you're ready, or you want me to do it. You
No,
got yours?
I got it. Genesis chapter 12, verse 1. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Now Yehudah said unto Abram, get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto the land that I will show thee. And I'll make of thee a great nation, and I'll bless thee, and make thy name great, and be thou a great blessing. And I'll bless them that bless thee, and him that curseth thee will I curse. And in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed.
All right. So now, I just want to go back just a little bit, and I'm going back to Genesis just a moment. After dealing with the area of Cain, Abel's brother, and you read where, starting from the 12th verse, or better yet, starting from the 11th verse, it says, and now curse art thou from the ground, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. And thou tillest the ground, and shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a wanderer shalt thou be in the earth. All right. And Cain said unto the Lord, my punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the land, and from thy face shall I be hid, and I shall be a fugitive and a wanderer in the earth, and it will come to pass that whoever finds me will slay me. All right. Now, the reason I brought that up and compared to Lecha, because now this is just the opposite of what was being put down on Cain. And I mean, now here, both of them gonna have to leave home. Right. Abraham gonna leave home. Cain is leaving home. Both is leaving for a different reason. One is being exiled and banished. Another one, Lecha, to go to what you will become. Sometimes we used to say, back, being come from Brooklyn, we say go for yourself, but go for self is like a little bit more, too colloquial for this particular sidra. But both of them had to leave a spot where they was at and go to another spot. All right. One, to be safe and flee wrath and chaos and violence. And another one, he fleeing some things that's negative as well, but for a better life. One gonna be influential on mankind, and the other one, it's more like a detriment to mankind, not a role model. So Abraham is going to be chosen to be a role model, and Cain is a typical model that we should never follow as down the road. So now, the gematria for Lecha is 100, and then when we say go for yourself, and it could just say Lech, but say Lecha. So when I say the gematria, in other words, you take the letters, Lamed, Kaf, Lamed, Kaf, you got the numerical number of 100. Abraham becomes really successful at his 100th year because he got the son he looked for, which is Yitzchak. And you find those different things there. But one of the things is that Abraham was promised certain things to leave, whereas Cain from already from the beginning, he's cursed from the ground, cursed from the earth. Abraham himself gonna get up and be blessed, and he said, well, first of all, but he had to do certain things. Both got to cut ties, with family. So Abraham's told to cut ties with family, and one of the things is it says, out of your country, to leave your country when you're grown. And then it says from your kindred, family, and then your father's house. Today, it may not seem like a big thing for a person to break off and go someplace where they don't have any family at. But back then, for Abraham, and to go on a mission and make a mission on a quest that I'm going someplace I'm not really sure. The Creator gonna show me later. And he's telling me, I got to sever ties with people I knew all my life. I got to forget about the stuff that was behind me.
Right.
And sometimes, you know, for us to be able to discover ourselves, we got to leave part of ourselves behind.
Right.
You know, and so you know, you have a nationality, you have family, you have a place, and then he said, "I'm gonna be a wanderer." But these things here, one of the things is that I will make thee a great nation, I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and be thou a blessing. And I will bless them that curse thee, and him that curseth thee, I will him that curseth thee, I will curse. Will I curse? And all the families of the earth, you know, they're gonna be blessed. So that means when we look at this situation, he got a lot of opportunity promised to him already. One thing, when you on the move, people don't get to know your name. They don't get to know what kind of character you got.
Right.
You really can't earn a whole lot of money, you know what I mean, because you ain't there long enough to get too rich. So now you don't have too many relationships. You can't build up trust. You can't build up bonds. And you're always going to appear as an outsider. This is what Abraham had to go through.
Right.
So now we got to ask, when the Creator buttering it up and making it look good, that you leaving all this behind, but you're going to have more going forward. That's hard to see, hard to, you know, and it takes a certain type of individual to say, I'm going to leave all I have now, all I know right now, to go out on a quest, on a limb, on a promise that's yet to be given. So I want that to, you know, kind of sink in a bit, because now when it goes on to say in 4th verse, which is going to read a few of these here. So Abraham went as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with them. And Abraham was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. And Abraham took Sarah, his wife, and Lot, his brother's nephew, and all their substance that they had gathered, and the souls they had gotten in Haran. And they went forth to go into the land of Canaan, and into the land of Canaan they came. I stopped at the 6th verse for a reason here. One of the areas is that what the Creator told him, it wasn't done completely from off Jump Street. Right out the gate. One, he said, lead a family. Now, the wife would be counted as one by most traditions, you know, because man cleaving to his wife, and there should be one flesh. So we could get past that part. But Lot, his brother's nephew, that's family. He wasn't part of the choice. It said blood relatives he's supposed to leave. And you notice it was basically his blood relatives he was supposed to leave. Nobody else, just the blood relatives. So that would include Lot as well. And then just to focus on that. And also at 75. Now we read later that Abraham was called from Ur of the Chaldean. But where he's leaving from? He's leaving from Haran. So we're not really sure. There's a lot of different commentaries about how long it was, or just only the spot at this time and this place in Haran where the Creator called them. But we read in other parts that he's called from Ur of the Chaldees. So if we say from Ur of the Chaldees, you know, and which is basically, you know, another term, you know, Ur could be like similar to the word or, which is lightning. Chaldeans mostly referred to as Kasdim, pious, righteous ones, but don't seem like to be so righteous in that area. But we noticed that he had he's called from there, and yet he leaves from Haran. And we know later on from reading the story, which I'm not going to read now, that their father Terah was on the way to Canaan land, but he stopped off at Haran for whatever reason. We know that his brother Haran had died there in Haram, and then Terah named the city. What they call the city Haram, and that's where Terah stayed. So we know he stayed there. So I'm not going to focus too much on that. But what I want to focus on is that the Creator gave a decree and gave him a mission and gave him a promise about how he's going to be successful in this mission, in this endeavor, to go to a place that he will show him on the way. But you're going to be a blessing. And now what's key too is that before, the Creator only blessed things. He blessed Adam. He blessed other creatures in the earth. He blessed Noah. He blessed his sons. He blessed the creatures to be multiplied after the Ma'abul. Now, this is the first time the Creator gonna allow people to be able to bless other people. Cursing is something that was already known, but this is the first time the Creator gonna allow people to be able to bless people. And it starts off with Father Abraham. And Abraham at this time. It starts with Father Abraham at this particular point in time. So now it says, those that bless you will bless, those that curse, and he that curse you. So there'll be more people willing to bless an individual than the individual, and then be very few people, like one individual will curse him. Well, Abraham. It's a little different when you hear about his protogenders afterwards. When Yitzchak, the word is a little slightly different. But in this case here, that in order for the job Abraham had to be well liked. He had to be able to gain fame. And then one of the things that the travel, if Abraham is going to be on a mission for this one supreme being, this one God, this God that has no corporal form, the Creator of heaven and earth, so therefore this God to have a certain standard.
Right.
I can't preach about the true and living God to an individual and expect them to follow me if I look down and out. Because the first thing I'll say, well, what did have the Creator done for you? So a lot of times we always say, observe the message and not the messenger. But the first thing we see is the messenger. And that's why we used to say, where I came from, come up in the Benny King. We be the message we bring in the song we sing. You're supposed to reflect that. And if you're talking about godliness, then you're supposed to reflect godliness. If you're talking about righteousness, you're supposed to reflect righteousness. If you, so if you're talking about any kind of holiness, you're supposed to reflect that kind of stuff. So Abraham, if he have a Creator, a God that teaches you to profit, then he gotta look like he have something going on. So for people to even listen. And then what was unique is that it says they enter Canaan land with all the souls. He entered Canaan land with all the souls they have gotten. That means that he convinced other people already. And not only him, but Sarai at the time convinced people. See, some people will think only men be evangelizing, speaking about this true and living God. But yet you read that, the matriarch, Sarai at this time, as she's called, she had convinced other people amongst women to be able to say, that way of life you're living, that idol is not God, that doctrine is not correct. And so he went into the land of Canaan with basically people that thought like him, on a mission like him, and don't even have a place that they're going to settle down in yet. So that's what you call faith. So if we could talk about people converting a mass of people to a doctrine of the supreme intelligent universe, then we got to look at Abraham, which was named at this time Abraham, and we got to look at Sarai, who we know better as Sarah. We got to look at them as being the first people that actually spoke up to other people about changing their way of life and following this here Creator. So we're gonna move on from there, and we skip on down to the 10th verse, and what it says. He built the altar. I just want to bring out. He built the altars also, but then later on, after he built the altar, then later on, he built another one, and he said he called on the name of the Creator. But you find that no answer come from the Creator at this particular time. So now we in the 10th verse of that same chapter.
Genesis chapter 12, verse 10, and it reads, "And there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down into Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was sore in the land."
All right, hold right there. Now, the land would not yield its increase, for Cain. And Adam was cursed from the ground. We had to work. But yet, Abraham on a mission with all this stuff supposed to look good and glorious at the time. This is the first famine in the whole earth that's recorded in scripture. And something never was seen like that. So it's like a shock. Now, can you imagine? You got an entourage of people coming on a mission with you to a place the Creator going to show you, and he's telling you all this good stuff. And the first thing you encounter is famine in a land. This ain't all it cracked up to be. It just don't look like, the land of milk and honey, so to speak. And yet, Abraham takes upon himself. He takes upon himself to go, get up his people and go into Egypt. Now, there's a lot of, just to speak on it, the Creator already promised him success there. So you would say, well, how strong was his faith then? There's a lot of different commentaries about, well, he didn't want to, he come into land as a stranger, and people might look at him, you the guy, everything was okay until you start coming over here talking this stuff and building these altars up here, and had this strange kind of worship going on. That's some viewpoints. And look what happened. We were worshiping to these strange stick gods, stone gods, wooden gods, all kind of gods. And all of a sudden, now you get over here, cross the river Euphrates, cross over this Jordan with your entourage and everything, and nothing growing. That's bad. So that's one commentary. All right. However it is, I just say this here, and this from my perspective, that if you're on a mission for the Creator, you have that strong faith in the Creator, then you will call to the Creator about the situation, because you said you're gonna be all the nation's gonna be blessed through you, and that don't look like a blessing there. So, and what I'm bringing out is this, and I like this, and the reason I bring it out this way is because as great as Abraham and the great esteem that we hold Abraham in, he's a human being.
Absolutely.
He has his weaknesses.
Right.
And it's not instantaneous that because the Creator say that, you're going to become that I am. It take a moment of development.
Right.
And it's how you go through those developments, those changes. And I always say, change is never, ever comfortable. It's always uncomfortable. Right. Because you develop a mode of doing certain things, and you say you got to break that. Straighten this out. Move this way. Don't move that way. Well, I've been moving like this way all the time. I feel comfortable, but that's the wrong way to move. Such is life. So we move just a little bit further, jump ahead a bit, and we read about, I'm just highlight this here and speak on it a little bit. Read about when he went down to Egypt, he told Sarai rather, to say that you're my sister, so they go well with me. So, and I'm saying, now, there's a famine in the land. You go to a place that's dangerous already.
Right.
And it's danger there. You didn't feel that danger crossing into land till you see the famine. Right. So now you go to Egypt where you find danger. You're heading into some danger, and you're going to say, look, so it could go well with me. Ishti, my wife, say you're my sister. And that's, that'll look too good for a man that's supposed to have all this strong faith in the Creator. And I'm not trying to come down on, my father Abraham, but I'm trying to show a development. Just like Moshe had to develop, Yaakov had to develop, Yitzchak had to come to a certain level. All right. So that our great father Abraham had to go through a development, because where he was, he couldn't develop there. But on his journey, trying to follow the will of the Creator, then he would start developing. And developing always come with some pains and agony. So what happens is he goes down there and says, my sisters, to put her in danger. We know the story. The princess of Egypt seen Sarah and brought her to Pharaoh, the king, and the Creator plagued the house. And then there's a lot of stories on that, but I'm not going to go into the story because I just want to fast forward some things. But when the Egyptian Pharaoh realized, find out that that this is she's married to Abraham at the time, he addressed Abraham in the singular. What did you do? Not that what she do. Right. What did you do? And if you care, one of the things that we find it often that a real person that really saves an individual, they'll put another innocent individual in danger. And we got to look at that for what it is. Because we always say, and I hear it often that, well, the Creator's in the plan. Whose plan? We make up a lot of plans. We like to bring Creator in it, but we got to be part of the Creator's plan and not bringing him into our plan. And a lot of times we bring the Creator into our plan instead of being in the plan of the Creator. Right. And so things can happen when we step out of the Creator's plan and come up with our own plan. Like the Proverbs say, man make plans, but God directs his footsteps. Right. So it is that we know that the Pharaoh returned them back. He gave him Hagar. That's how he got the handmaid. Abraham got a lot of stock there, cattle, gold, silver, men servants and stuff like that. Well, he already had an entourage of people following him in the beginning. So, but the difference is this Egypt Pharaoh made sure and escorted him out. Not only sending him out, made sure they was escorted out the boundaries back into the land. So in other words, if the Creator have something set for you, you can't duck it. You cannot avoid it. The same place where you had to leave because of a famine, you had to go back to the same location. And we know it couldn't have been no whole season. I don't believe it's a whole season, simply because the Creator ain't gonna wait a whole season for to plague somebody because of Mother Sarai at the time. So that was a short time. You in, stuff start happening, and you back out on that mission. So you make one turn, and then you back in to where you belong, back in the land that you ran from. So now we're going to move on over to another portion here after they left pretty well off in the 13th chapter. And
in the 13th chapter?
Yes. From
the top?
Yeah, we're going to start from the top.
Genesis chapter 13, verse 1. And Abram went up out of Egypt, he and his wife and all that he had, and Lot with him into the south. And Abram was very rich in cattle and silver and in gold.
All right, hold it there. All right. The word he used in Hebrew, kabed, which means to be heavy laden with it, because it's not the word for rich, laden with it. So it's a different connotation and meaning, which I'm not going to go into deeply yet until we get to that another portion in this particular sidra. But we're gonna skip on down, where it says, where it says, unto the place of the altar which he had made there at the first. And Abram called upon the name of the Lord. And Lot also went with Abraham, had flocks, herds, and tents. All right. Now, in the 6th verse, go on the 6th verse from there.
Verse 6. It reads, this is Genesis 13, verse 6. And the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together, for their substance was great, so that they could not dwell together. And there was a strife between the herdmen of Abram's cattle and the herdmen of Lot's cattle. And the Canaanite and the Perizzite dwelt then in the land.
All right, right there. Hold on right there. All right, one of the things here before we get into the 8th verse, because it's a moral thing, is sometimes too much seem like success sometimes separate people.
Right.
You know, if you ain't used to too much success to separate people if it's not gotten in a certain manner, in a certain way. Right. And a lot of times, you know what I mean, now you got the workers striving with one another, but yet you got other nations there. And what 2 of the seven nations that we're supposed to get rid of, the Canaanites and the Perizzites that's in the land. And you got the herdsmen striving, but yet it says the next verse, the 8th verse, it comes on and says what it says in the 8th verse in Abraham.
Verse 8 says, and Abraham said unto Lot, let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, and between my herdmen and thy herdmen, for we are brethren. It's not the whole land before thee. Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me. If thou wilt take the left hand, I will go to the right. And if thou take the right hand, I will go to the left. All right.
So Abraham is giving Lot the lion's share. That's what he's doing. He's giving Lot the lion's share of the place, you know, with the Jews. And Lot got a lot of stuff from him because of him, you know. Well, I hope this thing's okay.
I can see you. I can hear you.
Okay, great. All right.
All right. Don't worry about it. I can see you and hear you.
All right. So so Lot himself had got blessed because it says you will be a blessing. And if the Creator said you will be a blessing, then you know, anybody near you will be a blessing. So now, as we go forward into this thing here, we find out that he said you go to the left, we go to the right. So in other words, you're going to separate. And then it says from the 10th verse.
Verse 10.
Yes.
It reads, and Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain of the Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere, before Yehudah destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, like the garden of Yehudah, like the land of Egypt, as thou goest unto Zoar. So Lot chose him all the plain of the Jordan. Lot journeyed east, and they separated themselves the one from the other. And Abraham dwelt in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelt in the cities of the plain, and moved his tent as far as Sodom.
Next verse.
Now the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners against Yehudah exceedingly.
Oh, right there. All right. Now we find this the first time we find the character of the people that live in such a lavish area.
Right.
You know what I mean? That it says the wicked exceedingly, and that is when Lot seen and wanted to go there. Why would he want to go with some wicked people? You know, do he think he can change them over? Do he think he's gonna be safe? Because when you have wealth, enemy is, you know, I mean, you can't, you can't tell a friend when you have wealth. But in poverty, an enemy is not hidden. So now he's with Abraham, and remember, it said all of them came. The souls that Abraham and Sarai have gotten. Lot is also with them at that time. You know, who should have been separate from him. You notice that Abraham built a couple altars. One he built, he didn't call on the name of the Creator. Second one he built, he called him by the name of the Creator. But yet you don't hear where the Creator speak to him at no time with those altars.
Right.
So he had 2 altars. One he didn't call on the name, you don't hear no word from the Creator. Second one, he built and called upon a name, get no response from the Creator. That might be telling them something. All right. But now, when we get into this next verse, after looking at the Sodom. Yes.
Verse 14. And Yehodah said unto Abraham, after that Lot was separated from him, lift up now thine eyes and look from the place where thou art, northward and southward, eastward and westward. For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, to thy seed forever. And I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed also be numbered. Arise, walk through.
Okay. All right. First of all, you got to walk in the length and breadth, of the land. But the thing is that the Creator spoke with him now and gave him a promise.
Right.
And say, look, you see all this? This is going to go to your seed. In other words, your heir. Because you're going to have a lot of children, a lot of offspring. But it only going to go to one particular seed, which is going to be one heir. Because we know we got Midianites, you got Edomites, you got Ishmaelites, you got all those people. That's the seed of Abraham. But you only going to have one particular heir that's going to inherit that land. Mm. So sometimes when we just talk about the seed, we got to think about the heir. As a translator, because, you can have a lot of kids, but maybe one child will get the major thing that you want to say you carry the standard from this point on. All right, so we're gonna skip on past that, and we're gonna talk about the 14th verse, 14th chapter. It says, "In the days
chapter 14,
when it came to pass."
Genesis chapter 14, verse 1.
Yeah.
It reads, "And it came to pass in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Ariah, king of Elazar, and Kedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goim, that they made war with Berah, king of Sodom, and with Birsha, king of Gomorrah, and Shinab, king of Admah, and Shemeber, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, the same as Zoar. All these came as allies unto the vale of Siddim, the same as the Salt Sea. 12 years they served Kedorlaomer, and in the 13th year they rebelled. And in the 14th year came Kedorlaomer and the kings that were with him, and smote the Rephaim and Ashtaroth, Karnaim, and the Zuzim and Ham, and the Emim and Shaveh Kiriatayim, and the Horites in their Mount Seir, unto El Paran, which is by the wilderness.
All right, we're going to stop right there. All right, we're going to stop right there. Mm-hmm. All right. So we have 5 kings. You're talking about the cities of the plains that are going to be destroyed later. Right? But 4 kings, they rebel against these 4 kings. And they talk about, there's a lot of speculation who the king is, Amraphel and stuff like that. Some would say he's like Nimrod. So that's another story. I'm not going to focus on that right now, at this particular junction, because I'm not going to be labeled, the historical part in that. But one of the things I like to say is that now you have what they call, technically in the scriptures, our first revolution and rebellion of men against men, a warfare, that we read about. Now we know there's a lot of violence going on before the Malbush, but I'm saying organized warfare right here and this time. We have, the major players fighting another major group. And then when they rebel, and also you find the thing about rebelling. So men don't just rebel against the Creator, but they rebel against men too, servitude. That's another story, another area to explore, at another time. But when we look at these tune-up fights that they had, the 4 kings had these tune-up fights that they killing giants, big folks. These ain't no lightweight guys on the way from one area coming from, Assyria and Syria, at the time, and on their way to Sodom and Gomorrah in that particular area. So they're doing a lot of tune-up fights, and they're coming a long way because whatever it was, the tribute that these other 5 kings were paying, they say we ain't doing it anymore, and they come out to fight for it. And then we notice right then and there. We're gonna skip on down to the okay, the 10th verse, the same chapter.
Verse 10.
Yes.
It reads, "Now the vale of Siddim was full of slime pits, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, and they fell there, and they that remained fled to the mountain. And they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their victuals, and went their way. And they took Lot, Avram's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed. And there came one that had escaped and told Avram the Hebrew. Now he dwelt by the terebinths of Mamre the Amorite, brother of Eshcol, and brother of Aner, and these were confederate with Avram."
Okay, we know about Mamre and Eshcol, you know what I mean? Abner, we don't know who he is per se, historically. All right. But they was confederates with Abraham rather at the time. And so one person escaped. There's a lot of stories, you know, and midrashims on that, you know, but legends about this escapee. But anyway, it was, you know, this the individual that told Abram that Lot is, you know, and you notice, and call him, and in this first time you find the term Hebrew being used for describing Abram. So even though Aved itself is where the first time you hear that word or root of the word Hebrew, the actual person, that actually first person that's actually called a Hebrew, and you know, will be Abram that we read about in scriptures, you know, and descendants would, you know, and that name would carry generally for his descendants. You know, and we know that the word, you know, Ivri means one that's from the other side, to cross over, but also it's another term calling dusty foot. That's another historic term to refer to, you know, people, you know, that's Hebrews, like nomadic people, because you're constantly moving about, wandering from one spot to another spot to another spot to another spot. So therefore, you're not really settled anywhere. So they refer to you as, you know, a dusty foot, because you're constantly keeping dust on your feet, walking in sandals and always on the move. But you notice that Lot is his nephew, but they refer to him here as his, you know, as the brother, you know, you know, later on. And what it says, that 14th verse.
Verse 14, it reads, "And when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, he led forth his trained men born in his house, 318, and pursued as far as Dan." I need
okay.
to
All right.
yeah.
All right. I just want to explain that. That's what I need to explain, because I'm a martial artist, as you know, most people from, you know, around my circles know, and that we formulate you know, we every martial arts class, you know, you got different styles, you know, you got the Shotokan, Taekwondo, you know, different Fujipai, if it was just Tiger Claw and all that kind of stuff. You got all these different names in schools, you know, but when, for the group I was with, being we was Israelites, and the name of the group was originally called the Sons of the Ancient Israelites, I called my class and the students that was in my class Sons of the Ancient Warriors. That's what I called it. And my teacher and the leader of the place at the time said, why call it Sons of the Ancient Warrior? I think a better name would be Arts of Abraham. And he said, you know, because the first time we read about anybody training anybody for battles with Abraham. So actually the leader Ben Zakim, you know, at the time, the late Yaakov Nasik Ben Yehudah, he had come up with the name, the Arts of Abraham. I know those that might watch YouTube programs, you find that other people said that they might have started the Arts of Abraham, but this is the name. I was in the tournament circuit, so anybody that watched martial arts from the 70s and all that stuff, you know, different tournaments or I got pictures on there as such, was where we used the name Arts of Abraham. And, and we got it from this particular portion here in the scriptures. And no matter what style Israelite did that was around our circles and within our group, whether they did a different style taekwondo, whether they did some jujitsu, we still called it the Arts of Abraham because we always part of the same particular group. We had patches, shirts, and that's what we signed in Arts of Abraham. But we took it from here, from Genesis, train individuals. So I just wanted to elaborate on that for a bit of trivia and plus real historical, reference to why we called it the Arts of Abraham. Now, when I find people now say they started Arts of Abraham, I try to figure out, who you are, where you from, who's your teacher, thus and thus. But so he took 318. Now they always some say they take the name from Eliezer. I don't buy into that particular thing, but it's 318 men. That's where we leave it at that, like the Pashat says, the literal teachings. Now you say, well, you got 4 kings that whipped up 5 kings, and before they whipped up the 5 kings, they whipped up a whole territory of big giant type guys.
Right.
And yet you're gonna take only 318 guys plus a few of your Confederates, with you, the rumble,
right,
and the rescue, and it's to rescue one guy that left you, your brother Lot, not to save the rest of the people, but to rescue one individual.
right.
So that shows you how much he cared for Lot, more than Lot cared for Abram.
Right.
All right, and all right, so I got to finish a little bit of this, but go ahead. You can continue. 15th verse.
Verse 15. And he divided himself against them by night, he and his servants, and smote them and pursued them unto Hobah, which is on the left hand of Damascus. And he brought back all the goods, and also brought back his brother Lot, and his goods, and the women also, and the people.
All right, right there. All right, I just want to stop right there a minute. He brought back all the goods and his brother Lot and the people. All right, so Damascus is way a long ways from the territory where he's from. It's not a hop, skip, and a jump. So you're doing some traveling. Right. But can you imagine? Those 4 kings have fought a bunch of wars already. So if we try to bring it to, the realm of reality, so to speak, or possibilities, physical possibilities, not dealing with spiritual possibilities, just on the physical level. Right. That those 4 kings that fought a lot of wars already with these tough people in the land of Canaan. And then after they fought those wars coming from the north, coming down southward, then it goes and fight 5 kings and whip them. So now they got the people they got to watch. They done battle hard from the time they left to the time they got these people. Now they marching back. So now strategy is at night they need some rest. At night they're kind of tired. At night, if I divide the group up from half of my forces over here, half of my force over there, we didn't fight one battle. We are fresh and we're gonna attack them. Right. So that's just a physical strategy, not count, not much more when the creator's on your side and give you the victory. But I just want you to imagine it's not, not only waiting on the creator to hand you the battle. The strategy was split up my forces over here, split up my forces over here, and ambush them at night and come on them strong when they tired and weary from all those battles they raged coming down from up north. So then the king of Sodom, what did he want?
Verse 17. And the king of Sodom went out to meet him after his return from the slaughter of Kedorlaomer, and the kings that were with him at the vale of Shaveh, the same as the king's vale. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was priest of God the Most High. And he blessed them and said, Blessed be Avram of God Most High, maker of heaven and earth, And blessed be God, the Most High, who have delivered thine enemies into thy hand. And he gave him a tenth of all. And the king of Sodom said unto Abram.
All right, before we get to King of Sodom, stop at a tenth of it all. All right, I said I was going to mention about the riches again and bring out a different point. Right. Now, we have what you call Maaseh, which is like tithes of the tenths. Right. But the root word Maaseh is Ashir, which is rich. So when you give tithes, when you give to tithe of, different produce and different parts of the things that's supposed to be tithe to support the work and, for the glory of the Creator, then you will become rich. Right. So when we read earlier that Abraham was rich in cattle, gold, silver, and stuff like that, that's not rich. It was heavyweight. It was a burdensome stuff. But you actually become really wealthy and rich by giving tithe. And that's where you really become rich. So and one of the things that a farmer ain't got to worry about people stealing his stuff. If you got cattle and stuff, people will steal that and take that off. If you got gold, they can lift and take that off. Right. So now you become burdened because now you deal with security. Right. On your cattle, on your gold, on your silver. But when it comes to a farmer that's growing stuff, he have everything he want and need right there. Right. Even from clothes, because cotton, you make clothes out of it. You don't necessarily need wool. All right. But and in some places they take tree barks, which is a little stronger, to make clothes out of. Absolutely. So, so the thing is that given the tenth of this guy, Melchizedek, all right, which most people refer to as Melchizedek, and say who he is, who was this individual. One thing that we taught from where I'm from, and I still believe in this particular premise, is that he was Shem, and Melchizedek is more so as a title, because we know that I mentioned earlier that only thing men wasn't given authority to bless men. So you find Noah blessed the God of Shem. And he said Yafet should dwell in his tents. But cursing is something that man was able to do. Curse be Canaan, a servant of servants. Right. So now, Abraham, he's the first guy that's, when the Creator said, oh, okay, you could bless and people could bless too. They could bless you. Right. And they'll be blessed by blessing you. Right. So now here it is that Abraham is a blessing to some people, and not only and these the people he went after and fought was the place from where he came from. Right. The same place where he left. And now also, if we take it as if we say that this is Shem, the son of Noah, who we know chronologically is still living at this time. Right. Then also Abraham recognized him in order as being somebody who's serving the true and living God. But his mission is different. So much so that notice that normally if I would say bless anybody or bless anything, first thing I say, give glory to the Creator, like we do when we get ready to speak. Right. And then we say due respect. But what did Melchizedek did? He had due respect and blessing for Abraham, and then El Elyon, just the reverse. Right. So this shows that though he serving, he had a relationship to the true and living God, because Abraham won't do that and recognize him had he been an idol worshiper. And right. Salem was another name for short for Jerusalem, a place of abode of peace. And so we know automatically that being a king of righteousness, but not being the one to carry on the legacy, or the knowledge and spread the knowledge of the Creator throughout the earth, you see, just from his addressing to Abraham, by addressing him first and addressing the Creator second, when normally you address the Creator first and foremost above all things, and then you address mankind. So, but Abraham still showing the respect as a senior, as a priest king, king priest, as some people might say. All right, so and also just for a bit of tribute too, just as we were speaking on that, though we know King David was a king, you read in the book of Samuel that his children, referred to as Kohanim. For whatever reason, it's in the book of Shemuel, but that's just something to consider. Now, it gave him bread and wine. Now, you notice that bread and wine, you usually give wine to those that's heavy laden. Now, when we read about wine a lot in the scriptures, and especially in Genesis, you have something that went down tragically right behind it, so to speak. When Noah, the tragedy is the first world was wiped out. All my people got some wine. And grow a vineyard. Took a little time, but it still wasn't over the loss. Next, you have a bunch of other people wiped out. And though these people are related to Shem, because these are Shemitic people that Abraham is fought and killed and slain, and he also is Shemitic, and he also is the descendant of Shem. If this guy who we looked at is Melchizedek as Shem.
Right.
So sometimes family is, well, I used to hear the old folks say, tongue and teeth may fall out. It may not get along with one another, even though it's in the mouth. So here it is that it's about righteousness that was more important and what was necessary. So some people was meant to go. But then the king of Sodom, what did he say? We going down to the 21st verse, it says.
Verse 21.
Yes.
And the king of Sodom said to Abram, give me the persons and take the goods to thyself. And Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have lifted up my hand unto Yehovah, God most high, maker of heaven and earth, that I will not take a thread, nor a shoe latchet, nor aught that is thine, lest thou shouldest say, I have made Abram rich, save only that which the young men have eaten, and the portion of the men which went with me, and near Eshcol, Mamre, let them take their portion.
All right, right then and there. Now, you give a long lecture on this, but I'm just going to be very brief on this portion here. It's one of the things, how you going to ask, give you back the people when you was brought back and saved yourself? What do you have to offer? If he brought back the people, the goods, and you come out, then how you going to demand something when you couldn't defend it? So but Abraham took the high road. And he said, I already made a testimony before the Creator. We don't know what he said. I mean, we know pretty much what he said from here. We don't know when he did it. We just read the head. He took off to go rescue with his 318 servants. So those missing pieces, people make all kind of different commentaries on it. But not to belabor this long sidra, the thing is that to show you the mentality of the king of Sodom, you're going to want the people, but he could keep the goods. Then what they going to live off of? How they going to make it?
Right.
If he take all the goods, that means I take the goats, the lambs, the sheep, and the gold, everything like that, then you keep the people, then how they going to survive? And how you going to survive?
Right.
That's the wickedness and the mentality of the people of Sodom already.
Right.
So Abraham not only made a vow to the Creator, but he also shows the foolishness of this king of Sodom and the wickedness of this king of Sodom. But let's read a little bit. So they got a prelude. We're skipping to the 15th right quick, and we only gonna go a couple places here.
Genesis chapter 15, verse 1, and it reads, after these things, the word of Yehudah came unto Abram in a vision, saying, fear not, Abram, I am thy shield, and thy reward shall be exceeding great. And Abram said, O Lord God, what wilt thou give me, seeing I go hence childless? And he that shall be possessor of my house is Eliezer of Damascus.
All right, we're gonna stop right there just for a moment. All right, first of all, the Creator came to him in a vision, and fear not, I am thy shield, and thy reward, thy exceeding great reward shall be exceedingly great. All right. Usually, when he used the word exceedingly great, he used the word harbe, which is much, exceedingly, but they have a play on the letters, a hay in the front and a hay in the end. Just a heads up, so to speak.
That's arba me'od.
Yeah, so but haba is from the word habe, which is to be much, exceedingly. All right. So we got a hay in the front of the word and a hay at the end of that word. Those two hays gonna come into play later on with Sarai and Abram. But one of the things is that the Creator said, I'm your reward. That's number one. And not only that, I'm your shield. Why? Because if they came that far to wage war, is any revenge coming from that area? Any counterattacks? Could you still be on your mission? So the Creator assured him that you ain't got to worry about looking over your shoulder.
Right.
Nobody coming back to do you any harm.
Right.
In that manner. So now the Creator and Abraham said, I'm not satisfied with the rewards, material rewards. I'm not satisfied with riches. I want a child. So he could tell the Creator, look, that's all sound good, but that's not what I'm satisfied with. Said, what would you give me, being I go childish? Now that's a strong statement. Very strong when you look at it. You talk to the Creator of heaven and earth. And he tell you he's your reward and your shield. And you say, what will you give me, being I go childish? I mean, it's nothing you can offer me. But yet you got a great name. Right. You're a blessing. All families on earth will be blessed through you. This land will be for you. But let's read a little bit further, just a little bit, and I'm going to skip out.
Verse 3, yes. And Abram said, behold, to me thou hast given no seed, and lo, one born in my house is to be mine heir. And behold, the word of Yehudah came unto him, saying, this man shall not be thine heir, but he that shall come forth out of thine own bowels shall be thine heir. Right. And he brought him forth abroad and said, look now toward heaven and count the stars. Thou be able to count them. And he said unto him, so shall thy seed be.
All right, hold right there. I just want to bring out one little point here and back up in the third. When Abraham said, and Abraham said, behold, to me thou hast given no seed, and lo, one born in my house is to be my heir. All right. Now, he already mentioned the guy's name. So now, as great as Abraham is, you can misunderstand what the Creator's saying, or not really comprehend what the Creator's telling you in this vision. Right. That's why a vision can be somewhat obscured. A dream can be somewhat obscure. That's why Moses Rabbeinu had to get the Torah mouth to mouth directly, where there's no misunderstanding. So we find that great as Abraham is, from this last statement, he said, this guy is to be my heir. And the Creator had to come back and say, one come from your own bowels. So even though he's in this vision with the Creator, he still can't understand it clearly where my kid's going to come from at this point in time. And this from the father Abraham. So even great men can doubt their potential. And that's one of the points we need to bring out sometime, that, because a man become great, he didn't always work great. He had to achieve that, develop into that, and sometimes he might lose, sight of what's being said right in front of him on his road to greatness. But I'm gonna skip on down just a little bit here about the stars. We know about that. This time we're talking about the stars and heaven and counting them. All right, and then we're going down to the seventh verse.
Verse 7. And he said unto him, I am Yehudah that brought thee out of Ur of the Chaldees to give thee this land to inherit it.
That's where he come from. That's what I was saying at first. The thing was, if he brought you from the Ur of the Chaldees, how did he bring it? We know your family went there, but we read later on what he was told. So was he told to separate from them in Ur of the Chaldees, or were he told to separate from them and the land of Hagar? And this is going play because we know Terach, his father, was on his way to Canaan. So, right. And the Creator wasn't calling Terach.
Right.
All right. So if he was calling Abraham for a separation, then when was he supposed to separate? In Ur or Karam? And if he said, I brought you from Ur, then you took a moment before you decided to break loose. Right. How long was that moment? It's anybody, can speculate. All right. And it goes on saying in the 8th verse.
8th verse says, and he said, O Lord God, whereby shall I know that I shall inherit it? And he said unto him, take me a heifer of 3 years old, and a she-goat of 3 years old, and a ram of 3 years old, and a turtle dove and a young pigeon. And he took him all these and divided them in the midst, and laid each half over against the other, but the birds divided he not. And the birds of prey came down upon the carcasses, and Abraham drove them away. And it came to pass that when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abraham, and lo, a dread, even a great darkness fell upon him. All right.
Now, first of all, the deep sleep is used in the same word as used there as used in the book of Genesis for Adam when Melchizedek was taken from him, taken from rib and and God and the Creator built Imakawa on it. Now, one of the things is this: he believed the Creator about the child. Why would he need proof? Further proof. And when about the inheritance.
Right.
Simply because you got 7 nations already over there that you getting ready to get rid of.
Right.
All my children you gonna get rid of them just like you got them 7 nations are over there? Because they messing up. You telling me that the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. So the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. Are my children gonna commit that much sin that they no longer have any right to the land? This land of promise?
Right.
If I know the inheritance is going to be for my children forever, then I'm guaranteed I'm going to have a seed that's going to be perpetuated forever.
Right.
And that they're going to have a place from generation to generation to generation. So we're, tied to the land because that is part of our inheritance. And that's how we have that yearning to always feel like we need to go home. We feel out of place. No matter where we be at, we feel, I'm comfortable, but I don't really feel at home. Right. And so this is why he asked for a sign for that. And he knows that the Creator made a covenant with him going between the pieces. I'm just going to speed this up. Going through the pieces. And when he's going through the pieces at the time, that Abraham had no more contribution to this here sacrifice that he had right there. When he had these animals there, he flayed, he fanned off the, he fanned off the prey that was coming down on the sacrifice at the time.
Right.
But to show you that the Creator didn't need him, you know what I mean, to act on this covenant, you know, that the Creator is dealing with this covenant by himself, because when most predators come out at night.
Yep.
You know, around the world, the majority of your predators come out at night. The majority of your scavengers will come out at night. So therefore, if you're in a deep sleep and the darkness said, it's the Creator dealing with this by himself, showing you that I can handle this. You know, your part, it says, do what I need to tell you to do. That's it. Right. But you really ain't putting no real effort in right now.
Right.
To show you that the covenant is coming from my end and not from your end. No, it's not something you giving me, it's what I'm giving you.
Right. And
that's what the emphasis is in this particular portion. All right, we're gonna skip on down to the 16th chapter. When we talk about
chapter 16.
Yes, chapter 16. We're gonna skim over that just a little bit.
Genesis chapter 16, verse 1. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, bore him no children, and she had a handmaid, an Egyptian whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said unto Abram, behold now, Yehovah have restrained me from bearing. Go in, I pray thee, unto my handmaid. It may be that I shall be built up through her. And Abram hearkened to the voice of Sarai. And Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar the Egyptian, her handmaid, after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to Abram her husband to be his wife.
All right, now Hagar, in other words, saying the stranger, you know, the stranger. She's an Egyptian. So, right. So she's, you know, there's a lot of stories say she was that Pharaoh's daughter. We don't know, you know, what it is. Well, we know she was an Egyptian. She was Sarah's handmaid. That's all we got from the book right here. You know, we could spend a lot of different commentary stories, but I'm not going to do that now. But one of the things is that after 10 years, so that means Abraham is 85 years old, and we know he's 10 years older than Abraham at this time. And we know he's 10 years older than Sarai, right? So 10 years older. So 85, he gave it to her, give this handmaid. So now we're going to this here. I'll try not to be too long in this particular area. And it's that fifth verse.
Fifth verse reads, and Sarai said,
excuse
verse 4.
Yes.
And he went in unto Hagar, and she conceived, and when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes.
Uh-huh.
And Sarai said unto Abram, my wrong be upon thee. I gave my handmaid into thy bosom, and when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. And Yehovah judged between me and thee.
That's pretty strong right here. So I just got to focus on what just this particular thing. My wrong be upon thee. You know, right. My mistake.
Be on you.
My mistake. You're going to take the blunt of this. You know what I mean? And I gave my handmaid unto thy bosom, and when she saw that she conceived, I was despised in her eyes. The Lord judged between me and thee. So now, it was her decision. And she, you know, would say, all right, I believe in the created dream. Remember, she had gotten souls too when they went into Canaan land. Right. So she believed in the mission.
Right.
And she got a little impatient as well. Right. Abraham, you know, figured as long as I have a seed anywhere, it'd be all right. But the mission was for him and Sarah, and not for him and Hagar. So now, and sometimes when people get a little old, they figure, hey, you old, I'm burnt out, you burnt out. But, you know, ironic, a man may be slow, but as long as he lives and he's somewhat healthy, he still got some bullets in the gun.
Right.
You know what I mean? To the day he died, he's healthy, he got bullets in the gun. Right. So the thing is that she conceived right away, and then she started acting arrogant, looking down upon her mistress, like she's the one now. It's about you, and mind you, back in them days, for a woman not to have a child was a real dishonor when she was married. It was a real dishonor. Not today when they talk about, I don't want no kids, I don't want no family, man. There's too many problems. We're gonna have planned familyhood and all that stuff, So did those things there. It was a insult for a woman not to be able to get pregnant back then. And she's married, and especially a woman of that status. And then she talking about the creator judge between, me and thee. Right? But who did the problem? Did Abraham did it? Where was the issue at? Who initiated the move? Was it Abraham that initiated the move? No. But then the problem don't stop there. That's why I'm going to take just a moment. The next problem is that when we look further into it, but Abraham said unto Sarai, behold, thy maid is in thy hand. Do to her that which is good in thy eyes. Now, how can you say that to somebody that's already hurt? How can you say that to somebody that's already teed off? When they say wisdom, anger rests in the bosom of a fool, whether it's male or female. So why would you say something like that?
Right.
All right. As the man, why won't you manage things?
Right.
Why you avoid the problem instead of address the situation?
Right.
He pushed the situation off. And I know a lot of people don't like to hear that, but great as Abraham was, instead of dealing with that situation, he pushed the situation into our hand, into the hand of one that's emotionally already hurt.
Right.
And washing his hands of it. And it says she dealt with it harshly. All right. And and Sarai dealt harshly with her, and she fled from her face. All right. The 7th verse. We gotta read a little bit of this here.
Verse 7. And the angel of Yehudah found her by a fountain of water, in the wilderness by the fountain in the way to Shur. And he said, Hagar, Sarai's handmaid, whence comest thou? And whither goest thou? And she said, I flee from the face of my mistress Sarai. And the angel of Yehudah said unto her, return to thy mistress and submit thyself under her hands. And the angel of Yehudah.
Before we get there, we'll stop at the 10th verse for a minute. All right. One of the things I had to bring out, when we deal with a servant heart in our law, we normally, if they flee, they are free.
Right.
In America, during the slavery now, if a slave flee and you help him on his way, you could be hung or whatever it is because it belonged to another man's property in some states.
Right.
I think one of the things talking about the Missouri Compromise in this country.
Right.
But in our law, if you dealt harshly with a slave and they fled from you, you're not supposed to bring them back.
That's right.
But yet, at this time, she's told to come back and submit herself. Now, we could come with a lot of variables because now remember, we got to say, well, the law that Moshe brought down was not in effect at this time. So now we started with that. And next we know she incited, by despising her mistress. So if you despise the mistress in your eyes, we don't know what that meant exactly, how far that went. But it was enough for Sarah to bring it up, and it was enough for Sarah to put physical hands on her. Use corporal punishment on her. So we find that out within this in the scripture, and then the angel told her to go back and submit.
Right.
Yeah, submit to a mistress Sarah. Now, but before it says, the angel of the Lord said to her, return to thy mistress and submit thyself unto her hand. The 10th verse says,
verse 10 reads, and the angel of Yehudah said unto her, I will greatly multiply thy seed, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. And the angel of Yehudah said unto her, Behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and thou shalt call his name Ishmael, because Yehudah have heard thy affliction.
Hold right there. All right. Now, I don't want people to miss that part there. The Creator had heard her affliction. That means right then and there that Sarah, Mother Sarai, was wrong and a dealing.
Right.
You know, because she fled because of the affliction, and it said, and it's telling you already that she dealt harshly with her. So even great as Mother Sarah is, and then we always talk about looking to the rock from which we was hewn, in the pit from which we was dug.
Right.
And he used those two individuals, Abraham being described as a rock, and Sarah as the pit. You know, but yet we got to always remember these are human beings, not supernatural beings that have family issues and family problems. So we find automatically that Sarah dealt really harsh to her.
Right.
And so much so that the Malach said automatically, the Creator heard saw your affliction. You know what I mean? So the thing is that, you know, have heard that affliction. Excuse me. I heard that affliction. All right. So now, and it goes to describe the individual. And he shall be a wild ass of a man. His hand shall be against every man, and every man's hands against him. He shall dwell in the face of all his brethren. And she called the name of the Lord that spoke to her, thou art the God of sin. For she said, have I even here seen him that seeth me? Wherefore the well is called Lecha. All right. Amongst Islamic places, they said the well is Zimzim. You know what I mean? But that's another story. I'm not going to focus more on that. But the thing is that this information here that the messenger of the Creator told her, Abraham never got that message. What kind of character Ishmael is. That was never told to Abraham. That was never told to Sarai. That was told to her, Hagar, and later on it had to be discovered. Now we're going to skip on down to this the 17th, we skip to the 17th chapter, and it says what we're going to deal with the
Genesis chapter 17, verse 1. And when Abraham was 90 years old and 9, Yehudah appeared to Abraham and said unto him, I am God Almighty, walk before me and be thou wholehearted.
Okay.
Now make thy covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly. And Abraham fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, as for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be a father of a multitude of nations. Neither shall thy name any more be called Abraham, but thy name shall be Abraham. For the father of a multitude of nations have I made thee.
Keep going.
And I'll make thee exceedingly fruitful, and I'll make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee, and thy seed after thee throughout their generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be a God unto thee and to thy seed after thee.
Okay, hold it right there. All right. Now this is the first time the Creator's talking about Abraham having kings coming from him. Ishmael's already born. He had 86 when Ishmael was born. Right. So now Ishmael's approximately 13, and Abraham is 99. All right, and then the Creator comes to him now and changes his name. Now, just to fast forward just a little bit through the story. What was man's first job? Besides, he had a job waiting for him, but what the first act he actually did? First act that he actually did was naming things. That was the first thing he did, naming things. Hence, Ishmael was named, and said his name would be such and such. But that information came from the Malach, right. And yet Abraham is getting named by the Creator himself. from Abram to Abram. All right. A name not only identifies, but it also characterizes the individual. Adam, when the Creator had formed them dust of the ground, because all the animals that could pass before him, and what he did, give names to all the animals and characteristics. So in the name, you got characteristics. So like you have in Bereshit, where Adam's first job is naming, you got to have reconnaissance, and you got to have identification, and you extrapolating character. And they say a good name is, it's better than fine gold.
Yeah.
So,
that's what they said.
So therefore, the Creator said, you no longer going to be called Abram. You're going to be called Abraham. Yeah, so they added the Hay to his name, and then we know automatically that Sarah, Hay is added to her name. But then, and they talk about kings coming out of it. Now he already have a son, but it said, and make the exceeding fruitful. But now, so let me skip on down to the 10th verse.
Verse 10. This is my covenant which ye shall keep between me and you, and thy seed after thee. Every male among you shall be circumcised. And ye shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of a covenant betwixt me and you. And that.
Oh, right there. Now, before they dedicate places, they build an altar here, they build an altar there. All right, you call upon the name of the Creator over here. You have different pieces and sacrifices there. All right. Whereas the covenant the Creator gave to all mankind after the Malbus, the deluge, the flood, was the bow, the rainbow up in the sky. All right. Now, that's a covenant that you can look at, but you can't touch. All right. And when you talk about, the land itself, that still remain physically separate. But here, now the Creator gave, for the first time, he brought the spiritual and the physical into a harmonious sanctional unity. Because now, the spiritual is that what the meaning of the circumcision is, which is a covenant between God and you physically have it on your body. So now, the circumcision is a sacred thing for an Israelite, and for any Hebrew per se, any descendant of Abraham. So Abraham, 99 years old when he's getting this information. We know automatically, just to finish the story up pretty much, at the time, that Abraham was 99 when the Creator came to him for the circumcision. We know that the circumcision is an area where we carry a part of our covenant and our contract with the Creator, being a descendant of Abraham, being circumcised. Now, circumcision is nothing new. But what new is, now it's a sign that I got a relationship with the Creator. Right. That's what's new about circumcision. So when people talk about, ancient people knew about circumcision because Abraham didn't have to ask what that means, how to do that. And when we look at it further and about the circumcision, is that, it's Abraham in that self-same day, he was promised that he gonna have a child by his wife Sarah. And talk about the name Yitzchak. And I told you about Lecha. Yitzchak gonna be born when Abraham is 100 years old. That's the son he's looking for, and he's born when Abraham is actually under the circumcision of a covenant and a new name. So he's under a new name, agreement that he's really in the covenant and got an agreement with the Creator. And then his wife also was elevated. See, usually we can't be elevated as men, and our women can't be elevated. It's not elevated. We got to both be elevated together. Right. So the thing is that, so when a man is elevated, his wife should be automatically elevated. And yet the Creator giving this vision to Abraham and saying that this would be his wife's name, that she's going to have a child. we know that Abraham laughed first about everything like that, and like, a little chuckle, I'm getting ready to do this thing now,
Right.
But I'll leave it for the next sidra pretty much to go into. But one of the things I like to leave everybody with is that once you got the sanctity of the covenant, the Brit Milah, as they refer to, and we read in Genesis 8 days, every male that's 8 days old. But only in Wayikra, in Leviticus, I think around the 12th chapter, that when it tell you that it must be done on that day. That's where you get the exactness about, when the woman be, in need of for 7 days, and if she had a male child, and then, she continued, on the 8th day she circumcised. On the 8th day she circumcised that child, or in the 8th day she circumcised that child. Then she continued, for 33, days in a blood of a purification. But what I like to leave everybody with is this here, is that as Abraham jumps into this covenant, and not only him, but all his servants is in this covenant. So the Brit Milah, even though it's a covenant of Abraham and his seed after, also anybody that wants to come in the covenant to be close to the Creator, they must, males must be circumcised. And it's ironic, the women don't have to be circumcised, just the men. That's something. That they enter the covenant already, just accepting this way of life, just accepting the Creator. They in. Pretty much. We know we got certain rituals that, different places you do, with obligations to swearing and then immersion and all that kind of stuff, but basically they end. It's the men that got to actually go through a physical thing to be brought into this covenant. And then when we read, it was always the debate how it was done, which way it was done. From the school I'm from, we always taught Abraham was the first to do it himself, have himself brought into that covenant, which would make more sense if this covenant is between me and everybody behind me, my seed, and anybody that I brought for money, then it seemed like I would be the first to jump into this covenant. Just like I was a leader to get people in, I should be the leader to show certain things. Right. So when we look at it later on in the scripture, I didn't want to read it now because I know it's pretty long, and I want to belabor a lot of people. But that just the way we said, Abraham circumcised himself, had Ishmael circumcised, and then the rest of his household was circumcised, brought into the covenant in that order. So, people could have various other ways they might want to look at it. But like I said, if you got the vision, the Creator will give you the provision to do certain things. So I know circumcision is, is a painful thing for people when they're in a certain age bracket. But if the Creator, once you do it and you really all out to do it, you'll be able to handle that and do it. And then, like I said, he didn't have to do every male himself, but if he had to make sure that he's in the covenant first, his son is in the covenant next, and then bring everybody else into the covenant. You don't push everybody else into the covenant and then push his son into the covenant, and then he jumps into the covenant. That look like you ain't too enthused. So with that, I hope you guys something out of what I said. I know I've been a little lengthy these last couple of sidros, and any mistakes been my own. And those that have been listening, like I said, I know I wasn't able to address a lot of questions, especially from my brother there. But I guess we'll get a chance to talk to Imazay Hashem in the future. And I wish everybody else a good Shabbat and Shalom and a Shavua to a good week.
Hallelujah. Torah Rabbi Nasik for taking the time and the effort to do what you do on a weekly basis. We appreciate it at Congregation Bay DCB, and everyone online actually appreciates it because everybody's coming on now, and then the numbers are growing bigger and bigger. So they're listening. Torah Yah, all credit goes to the Most High, and we pray that the Most High God will keep each and every one of you out there all 70 of you that are out there listening, that the Most High God will give you all a blessed Shabbat rest. And we'll see y'all in the AM on this same channel, 11 a.m. Eastern time, with the live services that we'll be having tomorrow morning, going through the portion of tomorrow. Shalom, shalom, and everyone have a blessed day.
And you have a safe vacation out there.
Toda,
Bye-bye.
Nasik, shalom.
Shalom.